You spend time measuring resin, mixing colors, and pouring into your mold. Everything looks perfect, but then you come back later and you are seeing bubbles, tiny bubbles, big bubbles, bubbles everywhere. If this has happened to you, don't worry, you are not doing resin wrong. Bubbles are one of the most common issues beginners face. The good news, once you understand why they happen, preventing them becomes much easier. Hi everyone, welcome to Sprinkle of Resin. My name is Chamaka, and on this channel, we make resin art simple, practical, and beginner friendly. Today, we are talking about one of the biggest beginner struggles in resin art, bubbles. Why do they happen? And most importantly, how can you prevent them? What are resin bubbles? Before we talk about prevention, let's understand what bubbles actually are. Bubbles are simply pockets of trapped air. Somehow, air gets into your resin and becomes trapped while the resin is curing. Sometimes the bubbles are so tiny that you barely notice them. Other times, they are large enough to ruin an entire project. The most important thing to know is this: bubbles don't appear randomly, there is always a reason behind them. One of the biggest causes of bubbles is mixing too fast. This is probably the number one reason beginners get bubbles. We get excited, we just want to finish quickly. So we start stirring like we are mixing a cake batter. Unfortunately, resin doesn't like that. The faster you mix, the more air you are introducing into the resin. So you are basically trapping air into your mixture. And once you pour it, those bubbles have to go somewhere. That's why I always recommend mixing slowly. Resin is one of those crafts that rewards patience. Number two is your room temperature. Another thing beginners don't realize is that temperature affects resin. If your resin is too cold, it becomes thicker, and thicker resins have a hard time releasing trapped air. Think about honey. When it's cold, it moves slowly. When it's warm, it flows more easily. Resin behaves in a similar way. That's why many resin artists prefer working in a comfortable, warm environment. Sometimes the problem isn't your mixing, sometimes it's the way you are pouring. If you pour resin aggressively or from too high above your mold, you can introduce even more air into the mixture. I like to think of resin as something you guide gently. Slow pours usually work much better. Another reason why bubbles happen is when you introduce certain materials into your resin. Some of the materials we add to our resin can trap air. Glitters can do it, flowers can do it too. Even some pigments and mica powders can also create tiny bubbles. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't use them. No, it simply means that you should expect bubbles and how to manage them. Now, let me give you tips on how you can prevent bubbles. Number one is to mix slowly. Always mix slowly. Number two, work in a comfortable environment, not too cold, not too hot. Then number three, pour gently. You don't have to be aggressive with it. Pour gently. Number four, give bubbles time to rise. Yes, sometimes they take time to rise. Then number five, understand that a few tiny bubbles are completely normal. Here is what I wish someone had told me earlier. Bubbles are not proof that you are bad at raising art. No. They are your reason telling you something that happened during the process. Maybe you mixed too quickly, maybe the resin was cold, or maybe air got trapped somewhere. The more projects you create, the better you will become at identifying the cause. So if you're struggling with bubbles, I hope this video helps you understand that they are completely normal and in many cases preventable. I would love to know, what kind of bubbles do you struggle with the most? Tiny or large bubbles? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more beginner friendly resin tips. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Until then, keep creating and enjoy the process.